Thank you so much, everyone. I welcome you again to the Pride Month Vibe series conversation between Moon Goddess and Ordizo. And we're going to be looking into Bruises Don't Also Always Show, queer intimacy, intimate partner violence, and pathways towards healing. And to begin the first part of this conversation, that will focus on when harm does not arrive loudly, understanding invisible abuse, silence, and emotional control. We would love to ground ourselves in emotional well being. And I'm going to hand over to Amari Eldra Nya to lead this exercise.
All right. So, um, let's ground. Uh-huh. It's been a day. It's almost, end of the day, but it's not end of the day. So let's bring ourselves together here. Let's come back here. Can you feel yourself sitting, standing, or in whatever position you are in? Try to consciously realize where you are. Are you sitting or are you standing? Can you feel your feet on the ground and your butt on the chair? Or in whatever form whatever position you've taken. Okay, so we are trying to be present. And in order to be present, you need to be present in your body. So let's pay attention to our breathing. Where is your breathing? Is it out or in? Which direction? Find it. If you can't find it, just what's the word? First one, like consciously do one thing, either breathe in or consciously breathe out. All right. So let us take a very deep breath in. I want us to take a deep breath in. Hold it. 1, 2, out. Now take another deep breath in. Hold it. 1, 2, out. I want us to do something. Have you heard about there are many things that can relax the body. Usually anything that, triggers the vagus nerve allows the body to go into parasympathetic state and relaxes it. And you know that one of those things is something that has to do with your voice. So let's do a la la la. La 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 la. See if you can make the la 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 to come from the back of your tongue like that. La 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 la. Yeah. Now take a deep breath in. Hold it out. Another thing that triggers the vagus nerve is humming. When you hum something. So now, whatever song is in your head, let's hum it. Are you ready?
Yes.
I know you're ready. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Now, the final part of this grounding exercise is to pay attention to our posture. I want you to pay attention. Scan your body with your mind's eye. How is your shoulder? Is it lumping or is it broad, squared, and as it should be. I want you to use your shoulders to occupy space, take up space where you are sitting. Now let your spine be erect. If you're sitting, let your spine be erect. If you're standing, let your feet, both feet, feel solid on the ground. And if you're sitting, your hands, put it on your thighs. So take that position. And if you're standing, put your hand somewhere that represents power to you. Can you feel the position you have taken? What does it feel like? Now in this position, I want you to remember that you are safe. It is safe here. I want you to tell yourself inside that you are here to not just learn. I don't want to use the word learn, but you're here to be enlightened, expanded. And today, this moment, this meeting will be a threshold for you. So take another deep breath in. Hold it. Out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Welcome and thank you.
Thank you so much for that, and welcome everyone. And John, I've seen your comment, Samantha, and please take a moment as well, everyone else, to say how you're feeling now in the moment, especially after being grounded by Amari. How are you feeling in your body, mind, and heart at this moment? In one word, you can just type it into the chat room. As I welcome you once again to this ìAfrika's Pride Month Vibe series, where I will be in conversation with Ordizo, Odi Agev. We are having 3 conversations in total, beginning from today. The overall title is Bruises Don't Always Show, Queer Intimacy, Intimate Partner Violence, and Pathways Towards Healing. And today, our part 1 is focusing on the subtitle and the theme that is When Harm Does Not Arrive Loudly, how we are understanding invisible abuse, silence, and emotional control. To begin this, I would love for us to look at a community code of care. Today, I would love for all of us to be present, to be attentive, put your phone on silence and mute yourself when you are not speaking, and please hydrate. Grab your water, and tend to your heart and mind in case anything comes up for you that is difficult. In the links that I'm going to be sharing regarding Odi's work, you are going to see the care advice as well. Like if anything comes up for you, please contact somebody to support you, ground yourself, use healing tools that works for you, speak to somebody, and don't do this alone. Above all, hydrate and take deep breath. With that, I want to say, because we've taken a lot of time in the beginning, waiting for people to join us, I'm not going to go into the overall introduction of ìAfrika than to say this is an organization that is here transforming intergenerational and collective trauma. And I, as Moon Goddess, I'm a restorative healing researcher and practitioner in this space. And Amari Elra, Dr. Ifunaya Dimaku is going to be supporting us for community care and joining the conversation of unpacking what we are going to be talking about today. All of the people and organizations that I've mentioned, I'm going to share the links to read more about us, about the work, and I'm going to also supply links to all this work and all this bio, so you can download the the research reports, the music that goes with Bruises Don't Always Show project, as well as the book that came out of this. I'm going to share the link for you to, if you don't already have it or if you have not read it. That said, I would love to briefly welcome our featured guest today, Odi Agev. I don't always think I do justice to your last name. If I'm not pronouncing it well, please correct me. And it's also known by his artistic name as Ordizo. And he is a Nigerian researcher, human rights advocate, and singer-songwriter whose work explores the intersections of gender, sexuality, mental health, and social justice. And through research, storytelling, and music, he curates spaces for honest conversation about love, harm, healing, and community care. Can you all please help me welcome him by showing a lot of love in this Pride Month? You know, let your emojis show that you're here, you're welcoming. And with that, I would love to also talk about what he has curated. He is the curator of Bruises Don't Always Show, a multidisciplinary project that combines research and illustrated story and music to examine intimate partner violence within LGBTQI plus communities in Nigeria. So today, you'll be sharing insights from that journey and inviting us into a deeper conversation about recognizing invisible forms of harm and imagining healthier, more compassionate ways of loving and supporting one another. Please, once again, help me welcome Odi into this conversation.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. To talk about why this conversation matters, why this conversation matters, we will want to hear an excerpt from. Are you taking it from the report or from the book?
It's going to be from the book, yes.
Okay, from the book, so that can give us an idea of where we are going today. There'll be smooth music in the background from one of his many songs that came out of this project. And I'm not lying to you, I have not stopped listening to them.
Goddess for creating the space. And yes, you do justice to my last name, which is Agev. And I know that most of the people in this space who are here, who probably already know me by Odi Agev. Not many people know me by Ordizo, but yes, I also go by Ordizo for my music. And so for the book, I'll be reading an excerpt from chapter 2. And the title of this chapter is Something Was Off. It did not arrive loudly. There was no moment I could point to and say, this is where it started. Just the slow accumulation of pauses, questions that did not land, conversations that drifted sideways instead of forward. I would raise something gently, the way I always had, like not accusations, just observations. I was careful with my tone. I chose my words. I left room for misunderstanding, yet the room stayed crowded anyway. Sometimes the response came too quickly, like it had been prepared in advance. Other times, it did not come at all. What I said would hang between us, unanswered, until it felt awkward to bring it up again. I learned how to let things pass. I told myself not every silence needed chasing. Still, I began to notice how often I was the one adjusting. I replayed conversations in my head, checking my phrasing. Maybe I had pushed too hard. Maybe I should have waited. Maybe this was just what intimacy looked like. Two people learning each other's rough edges. Thank you. Thank you. So just to cap off with that, I mean, I don't know if I also felt like it's Pride Month and it's a month of celebration and everything, but unfortunately we are discussing a very heavy topic, but hopefully we will go through it. And thankfully we have Amari here who's also helping us with the grounding. And so yes, I'm looking forward to the experience in general. Just to also say that I'm not a teacher for a lot of people who said they are here to learn, but I'm hoping that some of the conversations would also provide some helpful insights and some learning insights rather. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad that I came back on time before I was kicked out by my internet.
Oh wow, I didn't even
Yes,
notice.
yeah, so I'm glad to be back. Let's center ourselves as we hear this song again and take that moment to come back into the conversation fully.
Oh yes, we can hear now.
We never reach. Say my name like it means something. I tell myself, say, make I breathe. But my heart don't already leave. I know they go anywhere. You know they go anywhere. As long as I be and you, we go there, okay, no fear. I give you all I get. No conditions, no regrets. If that love it is, I swear, I know they go anywhere. Oh, I know they go anywhere.
Thank you so much for that. We know they go anywhere. We're here. Happy Pride Month. And the conversation we are unpacking today, I do hope that it enriches us in ways that can help us look into things within our own space, within our own art that we want to navigate. So we are going to start the conversation within the next few minutes. Odi and myself will be in conversations where he's going to answer a few questions in relation to this project. Ready, Odi? Ordizo.
Yes, I am ready.
Thank you. I'm glad you are. So I want to begin before we talk about the findings of this amazing work. I would love to begin with your journey. I would love for you to share with us what inspired you to undertake this research on intimate partner violence within the LGBTQI plus community in Nigeria, and why it really is important for you to undergo this research.
Thank you very much. For many people who don't already know, this project started as far back as 2023, where I started having conversations with people. Like it was more around a question that had sat with me for a very long time, like how many people are carrying wounds that nobody else can see? Like how many people have those stories that, sometimes it's when it gets to a point and then it has exploded. People start saying things like, of course, there must have been underlying issues. Things must have gotten to a breaking point where it got to that point. And so I was just wondering how many people are carrying wounds that nobody else can see. And in my work and in my experience with working with LGBTQ persons over the years, I have encountered many stories of relationships that has left people anxious, have left people afraid, feeling like they've slowly kind of like disappeared from themselves, losing your sense of self, right? But sometimes those experiences were not described as intimate partner violence because there were no visible bruises. Like the person was not carrying a visible black eye. You know how sometimes it's painted in movies. And so sometimes people do not even know how to recognize what exactly is abuse. But it was important for me to also find the significance that sometimes we don't name harm, or sometimes we find it much more difficult to seek support or establish boundaries because of when as queer people in a country that already criminalizes us, it's kind of also difficult to kind of seek help, even when you experience that. But knowing that those realities can even make it difficult for people to also seek help to kind of support their relationship, I wanted to understand what people were experiencing, but how do we also pull these experiences forward to people who are also experiencing it without even knowing it, like knowing what to name it. So it began as a research in 2024. And while I also understood that people sometimes don't like I felt like it needed different languages to share information. Like it's not just about the research, like it also needed the book. A book is like the research is something that will bring of course around the data and everything, but I also felt like just having a book, a music and everything is something that can pull everybody, just having that multiple access or languages or multiple versions or variations of that conversation can hopefully help us to start conversations that people are also not willingly having. And so that's the reason why I got into this, but hoping that as a community also we can also bring ourselves together for accountability and also move us closer to healing and just find healthier ways of loving one another as a community generally. Yeah.
So much for that insightful, rich background to why this work is important. Without dissecting it, I would love to move into the second question, which is around what happened with what I've seen with your work and why I really love it. I saw that it moved across research, storytelling, and music. And I know you've touched on it a bit, why that? But I really want you to speak more to why the blend of the three and what does that represent for you? Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, so yes, I started speaking on that as well in the previous question, but just to say that, just to reiterate that research gives us evidence, right? It gives us the data. It helps us to better understand what is happening, like kind of identify what are the patterns, it could be academic, but sometimes just helping also to document things that often go undocumented, because for research, you go out to reach out to people, gather information, and like people who probably are not speaking around things. Like it's usually what inspires the research is because there's no available data for this, right? And that was the main thing that also inspired this research, because there was no available data around experiences of intimate partner violence when it comes to LGBTIQ persons in Nigeria. Like when I researched, like you would find intimate partner violence for heterosexuals or women, but nothing for LGBTIQ. And that was what actually prompted me into research. But evidence alone, right? You can all agree with me that evidence alone don't always move people. And some people can read a statistic, but still feel distant from it. It's like, oh, 63% or 63% said this, but it doesn't make any sense, or it doesn't pull that empathy. And that's where the storytelling comes in, because when you bring in the storytelling into the aspect of it, or you're able to share that emotions, people are able to connect directly with that. And I think that was the main focus of the book, to just put the story, like gather those stories into a book, give it a face. And so that when somebody's reading through it, they can say, oh, I have gone through this, or I know someone who's going through this. Oh, or this is what it looks like. I didn't even know that this is what I'm experiencing, or this is what it's called. And with the book as well, which reminds me, I was actually arguing with my flatmate today about if we should print the book, and we're talking about saving the planet, like save the trees and all that. But back to this, music. Of course, music just has a language that sometimes books can't tell, right? Like sound is just something that is universal. Like even when you're not even understanding the language of music, sometimes it moves you even to tears. You're like, why am I crying to a French song? I don't even know what it's saying. Why am I feeling emotional about an Indian song? I don't even know what it's saying. But that's the thing, the beauty about music. It has a universal language that kind of just brings everybody together. I know that a couple of us have probably sat in the room, listened to music, heartbroken and cried, or had a little happy dance moments where you're just feeling joy, play music and enjoy yourself. And that was the reason why the music also came into the conversation. But it also was just recognizing that not everybody engages with information in the same way. And so I think that it was very important for me to like have just different forms of expression so that different people can connect it, even if it's more than, if you connect to all three of them, amazing. But if it's just one of it, then I think that the goal of this was achieved. And also I wanted to also use this opportunity to also shout out to ISDAO for being able to also support projects like this, which also help us to like kind of support ideas in creative forms like this, because intimate partner violence is such a heavy topic that sometimes approaching it in the manner of a book or a music could sometimes feel like you're diminishing the topic. But I think that it was also very supportive of them to kind of like support the work and help us to amplify the work and just have those different kind of forms of expression that people can connect to. Yeah.
I think I agree with you, and I'm saying thanks to Isao for that, and particularly on why the three avenues you've used are important is even for me to allow people with neurodivergence to have opportunity to access whichever one works with them. And I think for me as well, the three works because music is the healing space I go to. Storytelling is a healing space I go to. And reading things that transform, my journey is a place I go to. And
Yeah.
we're going to play one of your songs, as an interlude at some point, which is the break, Stay Too Long. I've been listening to that because I have stayed too long in a relationship before that, and I knew what that did to my nervous
We all
system,
have.
And I knew as well what music did for me when I needed to heal deep emotions and crying to music, having it to release, having it to speak to things that I might not even have names for. So I'm grateful for the avenue that I've used. I think they really work well. And they're really very creative. And please, siblings, be preparing your questions, your feedback. We'd love to hear from you as well. So the next question I quickly want to ask you is, what then did your research reveal about the kinds of harm that often remain unseen and unnamed in this space?
I think that one of the strongest messages from the research is that intimate partner violence is most people kind of think that intimate partner violence is something that is physical. When people hear intimate partner violence, they think of bruises, they think of broken bones, they think of you showing up in a public place with a black eye, hiding it with black, like dark goggles so that no one sees the bruises, or you have put some powder foundation on it to kind of blend it in so no one sees it. But I think for many participants, like the deepest wounds were the ones that no one could see. It was like the emotional, the psychological abuse that they experienced. And it's sometimes it was even just being isolated from friends and chosen family. And for me, this was also very significant especially for queer people, because sometimes queer people move to cities like Abuja, Lagos, move from their homes to cities to start afresh. And so in places like this, sometimes they kind of have like they're anonymous, sort of like they've come to a place where no people don't know them. And so they are sometimes willing to even express themselves more, but sometimes before you find is a community of friends, you sometimes find a lover first, and then that becomes your world in that city, like your emotional support, your only friend. You probably are living together and everything, and then before you know, it's like you're having your movements being monitored, your phones are being checked, like things that would be disguised as care. And people would start making you feel guilty for wanting independence. And some of the threats, sometimes it's just been threatened of, I'm going to out you, or emotional blackmail and all of that. And so it also showed that people that also responded to the research also showed that these behaviors didn't happen all at once. Like they developed gradually. Like it was like, oh, I worry about you, oh, I only want what's best for you, and then over time it just becomes surveillance. And before you know, like you're experiencing harm, you're starting to adjust your behaviors, like you're starting to minimize yourself to avoid conflict, sometimes without even realizing how much of yourself like you're giving up for to have peace in the relationship and all of that. But just gradually understanding what the nature of abuse looks like, it's very important, because it explains why many survivors also struggle to identify it. Because sometimes you're dealing with someone that you love. That's another thing, right? You're dealing with someone that you love. And sometimes those gaslighting and manipulative behaviors are carefully disguised as care and love. And you're like, oh, well, they're just doing it because they love me. Oh, yeah, but yeah. And so those are some of the things that really stood out for me. I think another thing that really stood out for me for the research is also that many people blame themselves because it was made to look like my reactions or my actions are reactions to your actions. And so I am behaving like this because you did this. And so like people were starting to blame themselves and another thing is that self-doubt is one of the most damaging consequences, because when you start to doubt yourself, you start to lose yourself, like your self-of sense, it erodes your confidence, like you just become someone different entirely. And I think that was the reason why we also named this Bruises Don't Always Show, because it was like when this project started, the title of the project itself was the Queer Niger Project, which is it's unrelated, right? But when it started like being streamlined into everything, like when I started to gather data and everything, it was really Bruises Don't Always Show. Like that is what it was giving, because most I forgot to come with some of the data for the statistics from the research today, which I'm very sorry about, but I was about to say that the highest respondents, or the highest forms of violence that people who responded to the research said they have experienced. I think 1 in 6 persons said they have experienced intimate partner violence, but the highest form of abuse was emotional and psychological abuse. There was also coercive control as one of another very high one. Another high one was cyberbullying. People, even when you've blocked them, cyber stalking, opening new accounts to stalk you, follow you, or ask their friends to find out where you are. If you're not picking their phone, they are calling or asking your friends or acquaintances to, hey, please, where is this person? It's not picking my call, and all of that. Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us the insights into your findings in this regard. And I want us to take a moment to kind of take a break by listening to Odi's music and spoken word that we've selected for this interlude. But before then, I would love for you to reflect on what Odi has shared with us. You can see that even the name of the project started through experiential and empirical lens that he brought into this work. And what that means as well is in our personal lives, in our relational spaces, some of these things might be things we're sitting with, especially where, you know, abuse is packaged as care, and it takes us a long time to recognize that, and that by the time we've recognized that we've stayed too long, it's harder to come out, or it even causes us to question a lot of things about ourselves. You know, it's a lot there, and I hope that you can bring into the room some of your own experiences or how you want to contribute to this. Like I said, hydrate and enjoy this spoken word.
At first, it didn't look like harm. It looked like love with a few misunderstandings. I told myself it was normal, that every relationship has moments like this. I kept explaining things away, the quiet, the shifting stories, the way my feelings sounded like problems. I didn't know then that violence doesn't always raise its voice. Sometimes it sounds reassuring, and sometimes it even wears care. Sometimes it asks you to focus and slowly forget yourself. And by the time my body knew something was wrong, my heart had already made excuses.
You didn't shout, you didn't beg, you just went quiet, and something shifted. I felt it before I understood it. Your voice sounds different when you say my name, like you already leave. But your body's still there. I stayed too long, waiting for something when no day comes. I stayed too long, too You look at me like you're measuring words. No witness for waiting break for me. My chest tight, but I know talk.
anything comes up for you, please activate your vagus nerve, like Amari asked us to do, by humming something to yourself in this moment. You know, do something to kind of discharge if anything comes up for you, because this piece of music is moving. I've listened to it so many times. Thank you so much for blessing us with this ingenuity, Odi. Stephen David Temitope had written into the chat room, and I think this is important. He has said the weaponization of care is an important finding that needs more sustained attention. Well done. I really do agree with that. I may be collapsing some of the things I want to ask you by asking that you quickly give us at least one or two particular findings that resonate or come out so strongly for you during your research, during writing the stories, during, you know, gathering the data, analyzing, as well as making the music. What are these 2, 3 things that really stayed with you, and why do they matter?
Thank you. It stayed so long. It's like one of the heaviest songs on the project, and every time that even me, that when I hear it, like it stirs up a couple of things. But one of the things that I think I shared, that at least 1 in 6 persons said that they had experienced intimate partner violence from people who had responded. Another thing was that yeah, and I was able to go back to the research quickly to get some of this data now. Around, we have about 65% of respondents who did not report their abuse or seek formal support. And when we asked to understand why, it wasn't because people don't need help. It was because many people feared being outed or being blamed or not even being believed. And you know, there's that like stereotypes as well. Like sometimes when intimate partner violence happens in heteronormative settings, it's like, oh, male and female, and then if it's the male who's the female who's the survivor, it's like, of course the male is physically more powerful and all of that. But when it's between same sex, it's like, man and man, a man, they beat you. Like, you get the point. So people kind of also fear being weaponized or being seen as the weaker person, all of that. But also, we also do not just have support systems that are available, especially for queer people. Even for heterosexuals, like the support system for violence is not as much. For gender-based violence who's affecting women is still a significant issue. And so for queer persons, for us, that even kind of makes it even much more difficult. And so people sometimes have become accustomed to the behavior, and sometimes they didn't even, or sometimes they didn't even recognize that it was abuse. And some of it was just mask in so much like it's like care that people don't even sometimes recognize that it was abuse. But another thing that was important to this research was that more than half of the respondents, about 52%, also did not know one single LGBTQI plus affirming organization where they could, not saying that they did not know organizations, they didn't know the ones where they can seek support for intimate partner violence. And so it's not like they are not saying that they don't know that organizations exist, it's that trust in organizations is slowly eroding the community. Like the trust for like what organizations exist for, what they stand for, or what they say they are, services that they are providing, are sometimes not perceived by the community members as things that they can realistically walk into and get the services. And so people, I understood that as the trust in our community organizing is eroding, and we need to, as community organizers, we need to start to work around rebuilding that. Yeah. But yeah, Gerald is here. I think that in one other webinar he said something around strategic silence, which was very important in the sense of sometimes people choose not to speak up, especially for the fear of like the outing or being judged and all of that. And sometimes sometimes when you assume yourself as a role model, right? You are now afraid to also even share that you are going through something like this. And so like you're ashamed of being judged, you're ashamed of the personality or the persona that you've built out there. And so sometimes even when you're experiencing some of those things, it becomes something that you're afraid to speak up for. But I think that also those are some of the nuances that we can also look into. But hopefully we are building a more intentional community that is providing care to ourselves in terms of the support that we need and all of that. And hopefully we also can imagine or find healthier ways to love ourselves going forward.
Yeah, this is very important, and thank you for stating that, because I love what you said as well, because the trust is important in the community to have community-based organization support, as well as because now a same-sex relationship and people are trying to dismiss that, coupled with the fact that many people might not come up to speak to the harm that's been caused within this space as survivor. I know that in the part two of this conversation, because it's an interesting, conversation we're having, and unpacking everything in one skit will not work. I know in the part two of this conversation, we're going to focus on fear, stigma, and survivor, and why people, don't report, and what's driving this kind of shame that the survivors carry. But if you can kind of speak to this as the last question that I'm throwing to you, and as well as link it with why people cannot name the harm that is happening to them. Does this speak to what you have uncovered? But what's driving this in essence? Is this still what you have said, or is there anything else that you have seen as undertone to this?
I think mostly it's about most of the things that I've shared before, but I would look at this at three levels in terms of personal, like how it affects people personally, how it's affecting you at the relationship level, and also at the structural or community level. I mean, personally, I've also explained how sometimes people simply just do not recognize that they are experiencing intimate partner violence. Sometimes your friend has to say to you that, bruh, this is wrong. What your partner is doing to you isn't right. This is,
Yes.
yeah, but sometimes maybe just call it what it is without just generally saying this is intimate partner violence. This is coercion. This is manipulation. This is blackmail. This is control, right? And so that people can also recognize that, because emotional manipulation and coercion can be sometimes difficult to kind of understand, or it becomes obvious over time. Like it takes a while for you to like get that sense of, oh, this is truly happening. And sometimes before you realize it, like you've lost your sense of self, your sense of confidence. You've started diminishing yourself to kind of shrink yourself to avoid conflict and all of that. Yeah. But which I've now moved into like the relationship settings as well, of reducing yourself to avoid conflict. Of course, you're also dealing with someone that you still love, and or sometimes you're just like finding it very hard to fathom, this is someone that loves me or someone that I love. Like, how can they be so mean? But also, it's usually not like this in the beginning, right? It's always very sweet beginnings. It's like, and which is why the journey of the EP also starts from like the beginning of mating, introduction. It's really sweet. Or it caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting anything, but then I found myself attracted to you, and my heart has fallen. Today, I know they go anywhere. Like that's where like promises are being made, and it's all sweet and lovey-dovey. That's how it starts before it starts to get messy and things. And so sometimes the person that you are dealing with is like your only emotional support. Sometimes it's your financial support, sadly. Sometimes it's the only social support you have, because some people build their lives around the relationship. Like they don't even have friends. Or sometimes your partner also kind of like isolates you from your friends, and so you just end up having them as your only social support. And so sometimes being afraid of losing that person, like how do you get yourself back out there when you've built your world around this person? Like how do you then shatter that world and start all over again? Sometimes those fears can be difficult to walk away from. But in terms of the structural or community settings, it's around like, of course, we know that in Nigeria, like LGBTIQ persons, we are criminalized, we are stigmatized. There's the social isolation and all of that. And so silence sometimes can be a safety net, like not speaking up, not seeking for support. It's like if you don't have someone to speak to, who do you run to? Like if you go to your family, and sometimes you're not even out to your family, so how do you even start to share that you are going through some of these things? So those are the nuances that exist there. But I think that we need to stop asking people why didn't they leave or speak up. Like what we should be asking is like what are the kind of services or communities or support services that exist that people can leverage on, where like what are those support systems that we're putting in place to accommodate people that are coming out of those kind of experiences, or even if we recognize the experiences, even when they don't recognize it, how can we show up to them and provide the support that they need? Because sometimes it's not
Yeah.
easy to just pick up and or walk away.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And thank you for where you landed. Please, Amari, be getting ready. I just want to say to that particular one that you said about asking people, why don't you leave? It carries a lot of stigma and blame and making it, oh, it's your fault, you know? But where that seat is, what support is available for people to come out of what they're going through, for healing to happen, for them to process and reflect and build strength and agency, you know? And that goes as well for people who might be covertly abusing others and they don't know what's going on, to have access to a place where they can process, to have a change within how they're showing up in relationships. So I really think the question is around what support is available and how people can access it. Thank you so much for landing with that. Without taking much of our time, I would love to call Amari to kind of unpack this for us a bit. And please, people, my siblings, you may have to give us a bit of time to wrap up because we didn't start on time as well. And once Amory takes us through this journey within 10 minutes, the floor is open for you to share your experience, to share your feedback. And I can talk to you now about what will happen in part 2 and when that will happen and what part 3 will be about. Please stay hanging there and stay with us. Amari, over to you.
Can you still hear me?
Yes, very loudly.
Okay, so this is such an important topic. And because I have 10 minutes, I have written everything I want to say. So I would beg of us to be very attentive, because when you think about bruises that don't show, I want to find the beginning. Where is the beginning? So, where is the beginning? Thank you for holding this space, everybody. Thank you to everyone who has stayed present in this conversation. I want to offer a reflection from the place of the individual, the person inside the relationship, the person trying to understand what is happening before there is a clear name for it. When we talk about queer intimate partner violence, and especially bruises that are not visible, I think it is important to begin here. Even when we do not yet have a name for the hurt, the body often keeps record. I want this to sink in. Even when we do not yet have a name for the hurt, the body often keeps record. The mind may still be negotiating. The heart may still be hoping. The language may not have arrived. There may be no visible bruise, no dramatic incidents, no single moment we can point to and say, this is where the harm began. But the body may already know something. The body may know through tension. I don't mean tension external of the body. I mean the tension in the body. Through dread. The body may know through exhaustion, through confusion, through the feeling of walking on eggshells, through always rehearsing what to say, through needing to explain yourself again and again. The body may already know through shrinking in places where you used to feel open, through being careful in a relationship where you once expected to feel safe. And sometimes, before we can say, I am being harmed, we can say, I am no longer at ease. And that matters, because not all harm arrive loudly. Some harm arrive as silence. Some harm arrive as dismissal. Some harm arrive as emotional control. Some harm arrive as repeated confusion. Some harm arrives as being told that you are too sensitive, too dramatic, too demanding, too difficult. Some harm arrives as love that slowly becomes, some harm arrive as love that slowly begins to require self-abandonment. And this is where the question becomes complicated. How do I recognize that I am being hurt when hurt itself can be subjective? I want to repeat that. How do I recognize that I'm being hurt when hurt itself can be subjective? When what hurts one person may not hurt another person in the same way. When what one person calls peace or space, another may experience as withdrawal. What one person calls honesty, another may experience as cruelty. What one person calls conflict, another may experience as emotional damage. So I do not think the answer is to call every discomfort abuse. But I also do not think the answer is to wait until harm becomes undeniable before we take ourselves seriously. There is a place between panic and denial. There is a place where I can pause and ask myself, what is happening to me here? Not only what did they mean, not only am I overreacting, not only can I explain this better, but what is this pattern doing to my sense of self? Do I feel more free or less free in this relationship? Do I trust my own perception more or less than I used to? Am I becoming clearer or am I becoming smaller? Am I able to speak honestly or am I constantly editing myself to keep peace? These questions matter because invisible harm often begin by confusing our relationship with ourselves. It makes us doubt what we feel. It makes us question what we saw. It makes us over-explain what should have been received with care. It makes us treat repeated pain as misunderstanding. It makes us confuse endurance with love. This is why I know one of the most important forms of self-care is to know our standard before we are in crisis. Not because relationships should be rigid, not because love should become a checklist, but because we deserve to know the conditions under which we remain whole. I want us to underline this, that before anything, before crisis, we deserve to know the conditions under which we remain whole. We can begin by asking ourselves, what are my standards for communication? What tone can I stay open inside? What tone makes me shut down? What happens in me when someone ignores my concern? What happens in me when someone delays repair? What happens in me when every conversation becomes a proving that my feelings are valid? What do I need after a conflict? Do I need acknowledgement? Do I need apology? Do I need changed behavior? Do I need time? Do I need space? Do I need tenderness? Do I need accountability? What are my limits? What is negotiable? What is non-negotiable? All of these questions that I've listed and many more that you can add to are where the basis of standard begins. Because this standard help others to understand where and how, what makes sense to you before your body start to, act out when it goes beyond that. It is important to also ask yourself, what is my threshold? To what point? At what level? How much can I go, or how far can I go before I know I can no longer? Is it 10 times? Is it 5 times? If something happened once, is it enough, or should it be more? How many times can the same thing happen before I stop treating it as a misunderstanding and begin to recognize it as a pattern? These questions are not small. They are protective. They help us remain in relationship with ourselves. Because what does abuse do? Abuse throws the relationship with ourselves off balance. They help us recognize when love is still nourishing us and when love has become a place where we are disappearing. For queer people, this can be especially layered. Many of us already know what it means to measure safety. We know what it means to read a room. We know what it means to decide what can be said, what must wait, what must remain hidden. So when intimacy feels like shelter, it can be very hard to admit that harm may also be happening inside that shelter. It can feel like betrayal to name harm in a place that once felt like refuge. It can feel like failure to admit that love is hurting us. It can feel frightening to leave, especially when the outside world is already unsafe. So, I want to say this carefully. Not every person will be ready to leave when they first recognize harm. Not every person will have the resources to act immediately. Not every person will have language, safety, money, support, or clear exit. But even before a person can leave, they can begin to return to themselves. Even before a person can leave, they can begin to return to themselves. They can begin to notice. They can begin to document. Because, the trick that happens with, am I going crazy? Or am I imagining things? But if you document somewhere, you can make reference to it for yourself at least. They can begin to tell the truth privately. They can begin to say, this happened. They can begin to say, this is how I felt afterwards. They can begin to say, this is becoming a pattern. They can begin to say, I do not want to disappear in order to be loved. That private honesty, or this private honesty, is important, because when harm is invisible, self-trust becomes one of the first place where repair must begin. And then comes the question of boundaries. A boundary is not only a sentence. A boundary is not only, please do not do that again. A boundary is not only something we announce. A boundary is a standard connected to action. If I say, I cannot continue a conversation where I am being mocked, then enforcement may mean I end the conversation when mockery begins. If I say I need repair after conflict, then enforcement may mean I stop pretending everything is fine when repair has not happened. If I say I cannot remain in a relationship where my reality is constantly dismissed, then enforcement may mean I stop bringing the same wound back to the table without any evidence of change. This is not punishment. This is self-respect in motion. This is the individual saying, my boundary is not a decoration. My boundary is information about what I require in order to remain safe, present, and whole. My boundary is information about what I require in order to remain safe, present, and whole. And accountability matters here. Accountability is not simply apology. It is not simply regret. It is not only someone saying, I didn't mean it in that way. Accountability is the willingness to hear impact without immediately defending intention. It is the willingness to repair without making the harmed person carry the entire burden of explanation. It is changed behavior over time. Accountability is consistency. It is evidence. It is the difference between a person who is sorry they were named and a person who is willing to understand what their actions created. For the individual, this distinction matters, because if I accept apology without change over and over again, I may slowly train myself to live below my own standard. So I must ask, what does repair look like to me? What does changed behavior look like to me? How long am I willing to wait for it? What will I do if it does not come? Who can help me remember what I said my limit was? These are not easy questions, but they are clarifying questions. They help us move from confusion into self-recognition. And sometimes the first act of safety is not a dramatic exit. Sometimes the first act of safety is admitting quietly and honestly, I am being affected. I am not okay with this. I need to stop minimizing this. I need support. I need to believe myself. From there, community care becomes possible, because community care should not replace personal agency. It should support it. Community care should not take over someone's decision-making in the name of saving them. It should help them return to their own clarity. It should not force disclosure. It should not shame someone for staying. It should not demand a perfect story. It should not require visible bruises before offering care. Community care should help people ask better questions. What are you noticing in your body? What have you stopped saying? What are you afraid will happen if you tell the truth? What boundary have you named but not enforced? What pattern keep repeating? What could safety look like for you, not in theory, but in actual life? What kind of support would help you move at the pace that protects you? This is the kind of care that restores dignity. It does not rush. It does not control. It does not dramatize. It listens. It's steady. It helps a person trust themselves again. So when we say bruises do not always show, we are also saying that harm should not have to become visible before it becomes valid. The body may know first. The self may whisper before it can speak. The truth may arrive as discomfort before it arrives as language. Our task as individuals is to listen early, to define our standard, to know our threshold, to honor our boundaries, to require accountability that becomes visible in behavior. And our task as community is to hold one another in a way that protects clarity, choice, dignity, and the possibility of safer love. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, Amari. I hope that you've seen a lot of nuggets to look into as individuals, showing up in relationships, strengthening our own healing journey and understanding of the self, finding safety within to be able to show up in our own agency, to be able to use the support around us as well to deepen that. And I want to thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and reflection. As I hand over quickly to Odi, please answer the few questions. Two people have asked questions, and I want to see if there is any other person who wants to reflect quickly. And I've asked all of you to please bear with us as I'm looking for the chat room. Where is it? As we as we take few questions, hearing from you, having your contribution and participation. So Gerard asked a question, and there are two questions in the room. Enyi asks a question. So Enyi, so the first with Gerard is, why do invisible bruises often cause more long-term damage than physical ones? It's quite difficult pulling someone out of a toxic relationship. How can we better support victims when there are no visible marks? And I know that Amari has spoken about so many ways we can do that. But if there is any other point that Odi wants to add to that, please take the mantle or the baton.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that Amari has said so many wonderful things. Like I would hear one that I'm like, oh yes, and then another one pops up. I'm like I got like I couldn't stop snapping my fingers to most of the things that Amari had said. And those are very important questions. But I think that one of the statement that stayed with me was like, who can help me remember what my limits are? Which also brings me to the point of setting those limits for yourself first. And I think that that's where Amari started her conversation, her reflections is about your identity, yourself, staying true to yourself. And when you're in a relationship and you start to feel yourself diminishing, you start to question yourself, you start to edit the things that you actually wanted to say, those are flags. Those are flags. And but I think that the most important thing, well, I also wanted to say to Gerald's question that invisible bruises they don't usually cause more harm than physical. It's difficult to like compare it. So I think that both of them can cause significant damage long term. Depends on the magnitude of whatever violence that you're experiencing. But I think that it's harder for people who are even experiencing harm, that are experiencing emotional, psychological, sometimes even verbal abuse. It's even harder for them to even recognize it, to even begin to seek for help. And so I can get why. And the most important thing is that if people don't share that this is what I'm going through, then it's difficult to even understand. I know we have this common knowledge in Nigeria to say, and they know they choke mouth for husband and wife matter, because when they settle, they'll now use you and laugh about it and all of that. So, so that kind of those kind of things that we've normalized kind of make it difficult also. And sometimes you also have your partner who's telling you, I don't like it when you share our situations to your friends. Why are you talking about that? Like, every relationship is like this. People go through things. Like, those are some of the ways that people just normalize some of these behaviors that are often disguised as care. But I think that if anybody opens up to you, like, I know that at some point we're going to listen to some other parts of the EP in the second and third series of this journey that Moon Goddess and I are going through. But I think that you're going to listen to one of the spoken words that said, "What saved me is the people who believed me." And so it means that when people, when friends, when share with you that this is what they are going through, irrespective of who you know their partner to be, because sometimes who you know your partner to, who your friend is to you, or your brother or your cousin or your whatever, is a different person in a relationship. It's also very important to note that. And so when people come to you and say, "Oh, Odi did this to a partner," you're like, "Nah, I know Odi. Odi will never do that." That's a very, like, that you don't just react like that. You're like, why would anybody just come to you and lie to you about Odi? You get the point, right? So, like, if this person is saying that Odi has done this to them, you need to listen and understand where this person is coming from and give that support where necessary. And I think that that's also very important. But I think it was also very in line with Enyi's question around manipulation and regaining control. But I think just to add to that is that I think that we as Nigerians, we also do not take therapy and counseling as something very serious, but I think it's something that we should also start engaging in. But if therapy and counseling is not available, just finding that place of community, people who believe, who are taking your word for it, people who, if you say, "I need you," they are there for you. Like, they are not asking questions. "Hey, I need you to get me out of this place now." You're not asking, "Why are you there? Why are you there by this time of the day?" You're showing up and taking them there and asking the questions later. Like, those are the kind of community support that we need to be for ourselves. And I think that that could be helpful. But I think also, just to round up, that Amari really shared important, amazing questions that we need to always re-ask ourselves. And I'm hoping that we can get some of those questions as a reflective tool to share with our friends and even ourselves, to sit with it at some point, because we need to ask ourselves those questions time and time and time again. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. And Amari had their hand up.
Okay.
Please, if you still have any question, last question, get ready. Yeah, go on.
Yes, I'll be happy to. I'll send it to Moon Goddess. So you can share with the people who need those questions for reflection.
Thank you.
I also want to just add a point to the question Gerald asks. Why do invisible bruises often cause more long-term damage than physical ones? If you have physical bruise, you see it. It's because it's visible. You take care of it. you immediately do something about it. Your whole body and psyche is like, danger, 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 danger. You start to make plans on how to save yourself. But you see, invisible ones, you do not realize that it's happening. But one of the biggest reason why you don't realize that it's happening is because you don't have, like, before, you know how we start relationship, we try, I'm sorry, but let's throw away heterosexual, heteronormative nonsense out of queer household, please. You know, if you look at it, it's like when we go into relationship, let's look at this. The person who is interested in you is interested in the version of you that is you that they see. That version of you that they see and they like is sustained by a set of standard rules, boundaries, and threshold. And if you go into a relationship and those boundaries and rules are not maintained, you suddenly lose yourself. You are no longer the you they are interested in. You see, it's like this counter thing. You're no longer the you that they are interested in because you have lost yourself. And you are trying to find yourself. And if you're not yourself, what are you going to be? So it's important that we know ourselves. There is nothing in this life than knowing the limits you have for yourself, the boundaries you have for yourself, the levels you have for yourself. And that is the first place that help us recognize that, when it's crossing, you're like, no. Okay, I can do that one or two. But after the third time, it's done. I'm going to lose myself. And if you remember that if you lose yourself, you have lost the person they're interested in. So it's no longer what you started. And to Enyi's question, how do you heal from manipulation?
Thank you so much for that.
And regain control. Like I said, in part of the reflection is to start with yourself. Take back yourself, your authority, your self-trust. Start there. That's the best place to start. And when you realize you, then you can just throw all of them away.
Thank you so much. My network has been fluctuating. So I spoke when I thought Amari had finished. Sorry if that interrupted you for a bit. What I want to say is, please, I still wonder if there's one more burning question for somebody to contribute. But Amari and said something in line with what Odi has said that I wrote down around replicating heterosexual form of relationship in queer spaces. And I want us to look at that critically. And you know why? Because all of us need to interrogate what pattern of relationship we grew up with. The answer is there as well. The childhood wounding and the wound and the survival mechanism we have used in our own household. And can you all hear me? And the way we have been raised. And all of that is part of what we carry into other spaces, hanging. And I don't know if you are hearing me at all. So all of that is the pattern we carry into our relationship. And part of how to heal that is to kind of do the work that is necessary within, recognizing that conditioning, recognizing the pattern we have, recognizing how we are showing up and how that kind of go in tandem with how we are raised. Because we need to do the work of healing ourselves as well to show up better in our own relationship. That goes for survivors as well, and anybody who had caused harm. For that, I remember a friend I was talking to who is doing their own healing work, and they were like, hang on, I have hurt other people with the way I was surviving in the world. I've done codependent relationship. I've done all of these, but as at that time, I didn't know that was what I was doing myself. So shining the light on their own self, let them see how they replicate pattern of abuse in relationship that they are entering. And sometimes some of us look as well and we see what we are enabling. And this goes to all the limitations around what we need to look into. Vital and important questions that are being asked here today. And I can see that Nkiruka Favor wrote this. Bruises Don't Always Show reminds us that not every wound is visible. Many people carry emotional pain caused by rejection, discrimination, and a lack of acceptance. Yes, 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 yes. I am doing, what do we call this now? Clocking in. I'm clocking in. Some people believe that everyone should be straight, but human beings are diverse in many ways. We are different in our height, body size, skin color, personalities, talents, and many other characteristics. These differences make the world unique and interesting. In the same way, people have different sexual orientations and identities. Whether or not someone agrees with or understands those differences, it's important to recognize that people deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. When people are judged, excluded, or bullied because of who they are, the emotional bruises they carry may not be visible, but they are real. Thank you for that. It's very important on that note to reflect on how to support ourselves and to support each other and to heal better in all our lives endeavors. And for that, I want to begin to bring this conversation to a close by appreciating everybody and by saying that please prepare for the part 2 of this conversation, where we are going to go into fear, stigma, and survival in queer relationship and how criminalization, shame, and social isolation further impact survivors. That will be the second conversation. And this will be coming up on the 17th of July. You will see invitations for you to join us in this continuous and unfolding conversation. And part 3, the date is yet to be decided. We are going to go into softness after survivor, healing, accountability, community care, and reimagining queer love. And what I love about where we have landed now is we are already talking about how to begin to unpack all of that. Yeah? And how reimagining can work for us. And now we can look at all of the other ways in which fear, stigma, and criminalization impact us. And what Nkiru wrote here is a return to that. Nkiruka, please get ready for the next conversation. We still have a long way to go to strengthen ourselves, to heal together. And I want to say thank you, Odi, for bringing this research to life, for all the way you storytell, for all the ways your music, creative work is enhancing what we need to do to be in wholesome relationship with ourselves and with each other. One of the heterosexual ideology is the hierarchy of relationship with romantic one on the top of the chain. This creates a high risk in terms of invisible harm. This does not belong in queer household. Thank you for saying that. All of these we will unpack. We will bring back in the unfolding conversation. So thank you so much, Amari. Thank you so much, Odi. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And when Amari shares with me the questions they've asked us in the room today, I'm forwarding to all of us. And you can stay with us as we close. And I want us to close with one of the songs in the albums of Odi. This one is Ifemi. I would love for us to enjoy it, to breathe to it, to use it to do the vagus nerve exercise that Amari took us through. Remember how they said we should hum. So hum to that song, feel the vibe, be on your feet, you can dance to it, and then we can say goodbye. But before I play that song, Odi, do you have any final take for us before we close?
Yes, I literally was just typing in the chat box just a shout out to everybody who participated in the research, who were contributed to this project in forms of like interviews, because I had like personal interviews with persons who were willing to share their stories that shaped the book and the music and everything, who are also on this call. I just wanted to give that shout out to them. I'm super grateful for them for being vulnerable and open enough to share their life experiences with me and also just following me through this journey, because some of them were also there with me at the launching events, Toyin Moon Goddess that you missed, but they were there with me. Some of them were there with me in the room, and some of them are here also on this call, and I'm super appreciative for their openness and vulnerability to contribute to this project. Thank you so much. But for everybody who has also joined in, I appreciate, and I'm looking forward to the part 2, because we have lots of other things to unpack. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. I will now play the music. And please, when I write to you, I'm going to include the link to download all this work so you can take time to read it and learn further from it as well. Much love to you, siblings, and thank you for being with us. Let's have that Vegas nerves vibration as we listen to this song. Can you all hear it?
Ìfẹ́ mi ayé kò yẹ kó rí báyìí. Ìfẹ́ mi ayé kò yẹ kó má lọ báyìí. Brother, I hope you know, forget. Said it's life we get. No get another. So I be in love, but then behind closed doors, you that beat and be venting your lover. Be crying, bleeding. Can't you see it? Oh Lord, I can't take it. My heart is breaking. Why you they do me so? Can't you see me crying? I know the feeling in your heart is strong, but love should not feel that way. All of the scars, they won't heal from it. They don't deserve it. Whoa. I wish you strength to walk away. Ooh, so you gotta lift up before you're 6 feet below. Say no to white baby. So, can't you see me crying? This love, this love, this love, this love. They said to me that love is love. But this love is not love. This love, this love, this love.
Okay, now the network is in the way, so yes, thank you.
Love is love, but this love. Ìfẹ́ mi ayé kò yẹ kó rí.
Ìfẹ́ mi ayé kò yẹ kó má lọ.